What is Anura Disanayake really gaining by his recent overseas visits? He's meeting a lot of Sri Lankan diaspora.
Why we are reaching out to the diaspora is because we think there's a lot of potential there to be mobilized.
Some also feel that, that trend is now sort of shifting away.
So this is not some sort of superficial trend about just popularity itself, right? It's much more driven based on a relationship that we have established with people.
How does the NPP look at, addressing the overall economy of Sri Lanka? Like, these are consistent issues that we've been having.
Sure, we have a definite plan, and I think that's the bottom line, right? That successive governments have not really had a plan.
He said this is the starting point. You need to restructure debt, and then that's the beginning of the process.
See, for us, for the NPP, it's not just a choice between restructuring and the lives of people. These need to go hand in hand.
Hello and welcome to another episode of On Fire here on Daily Mirror. I'm Easwaran Rutnam. One of the hottest topic in Sri Lanka these days is at least how the government calls it, the end of bankruptcy. And, the recovery of the economy. Sri Lanka is now going to be able to rebuild. But there is a certain segment of society which is not really celebrating the end or the discussions or the bilateral agreements or the agreements that Sri Lanka has struck with bilateral creditors. To discuss this and more with me on the program today is National People's Power Member of Parliament, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Easwaran.
So, among this segment of people who are not really celebrating the end of bankruptcy in Sri Lanka is, of course, the NPP, because the NPP feels that it's not the end, that there are more issues. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, certainly bankruptcy has been declared at an end by the president, but we don't have enough information or details to actually celebrate. We think it's not just the end of bankruptcy, but also that the economy is recovering. Right? That is what we really need to celebrate, and certainly entering into some kind of sustainable debt relief program is part of that, right? So we don't have enough information to really celebrate based on what the president has said. As you know, he was due to give a speech in Parliament, which he did, but that was pretty much information we already had. There was nothing new. There are no details of the program that he has entered into.
So you want to see the actual agreement.
We need to see the actual agreements. As you know, there is also the international sovereign bonds that we need to restructure, and we have no information as yet about those either, no official information, right? So it's only when we see that full picture that we can make an assessment whether we are on the path to recovery.
Okay.
Right? And also at this point, it's really crucial that we deal with the fact that our economy is in deep recession. This is what's hurting people really badly, because they took on the burden of the austerity program that was imposed in order to meet the conditions for restructuring. But then whether the economy is recovering in terms of the actual lives of people, this we know is not happening. Right? And so
but I spoke to Ravikant Naika in my last program, former finance minister, now who is, so more or less part of the government as well. And his opinion was like, when I mentioned the same thing, the lives of the people have not really changed. He said, this is the starting point. You need to restructure debt, and then that's the beginning of the process. Would you agree to that?
Well, two things. I think it's interesting you said that Ravi Karunanayake is part of the government, right? He's unelected,
yes,
and yet he was one of those who was not deemed trustworthy enough by the people to be re-elected, and here he is making pronouncements on the economy. That in itself, I think, is indicative of the larger problem we are facing. But see, for us, for the NPP, it's not just a choice between restructuring and the lives of people. These need to go hand in hand. This is why we were also, we attempted at every level to make sure that the pain of the restructuring program is distributed a little more fairly within society, right? That the most vulnerable do not continue to have to carry this burden because they've already paid, right? And in many ways, they are not to blame for the crisis, right? So for all of those reasons, that's where we would differ from what Mr. Karunanayake is saying, that, okay, now, yes, we've borne the brunt of it and now we are on the path to recovery. We do not see the signs for that. And we also do not think it's something that should happen, yes, this needs to happen first and then we'll look at the recovery. Because while we are doing this, people are suffering.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's actual hunger, the nutrition levels are dropping, education, health, all of this is in crisis. So, you can't kind of say, wait, we will come, do all of this and then deal with the problems of the people.
But shouldn't there be a start somewhere? I mean...
Start to what?
To the recovery process. I mean, you're saying, yes, it needs to go hand in hand. But if someone says, okay, this would help the next stage of, helping the people to recover their lives as well, their own economies, would that be a fair assessment?
That's why I said that we need to have more information about what exactly that deal is going to be, what exactly those agreements are, and whether it's merely a postponement of the crisis and giving people a couple of years relief and then we have to start this all over again, or are we actually able to start fixing the economy and get the economy going again? And then again, we don't think that you have to wait for those agreements to get the economy ticking or to give certain relief, bits of relief to people either, right? That's where we disagreed very sharply with the government, that this level, this degree of austerity was unfair, right?
So if there is an NPP administration in the future, you all would look at renegotiating with the IMF, is it, on their agreements?
We would look at both aspects of it. We would look at restructuring. We would also look at what the restructuring means and lessening the impact of austerity on people. So both those would go hand in hand. We would also look at what needs to happen to get the economy kick-starting again. I think this is where there's a fundamental difference between the current government's approach and our approach, in that this government seems to think that the only way out of the economic crisis is by restructuring. For us, yes, restructuring is important, but you also need to do things to get the economy going again, to get us out of the recession. And the agreements we come to with regard to restructuring, or the agreements and the conditions we agree to with the IMF, can't be a barrier to getting us out of the recession, right? That is where the negotiation needs to happen, and we don't think the government negotiated hard enough or well enough.
They just agreed to everything.
They just agreed to everything, and because they also are fundamentally in agreement with this model that austerity works.
Right.
And I think there are plenty of examples all over the world where austerity in and of itself is not the answer.
How does the NPP look at addressing the overall economy of Sri Lanka? Like, these are consistent issues that we have been having. There's talk about the need to have a local agriculture-based economy. Is this the NPP have sort of a plan of how it will address this?
For sure. We have a definite plan, and I think that's the bottom line, right? That successive governments have not really had a plan or not really stuck to a plan, right? Not really stuck to a plan that is focused also on the people. There has been a plan, but the plan has benefited those in power, right, and those individuals. It hasn't really benefited the mass of the country or the population or the citizens of this country. So our plan is to create the conditions for an economy that would actually benefit the people. So the decisions we make, the strategies we take are focused on getting the benefits to people rather than concentrating the benefits to among a few or among the powerful.
Right.
So that's the fundamental difference. And yes, we certainly have a plan, and our plan, I would say in principle there are three elements to the plan. One is we think we need to strengthen our manufacturing economy, whether it's production, manufacturing of goods, or also creation of services. But we can't be at the bottom end of our products, where we are sort of catering to the very low level in the global marketplace. So we are producing labor in terms of human resource. So the services we provide, we are producing really low-level labor. We're sending housemaids. We are sort of setting up data, sort of processing centers.
Right.
We think if we really want to be competitive and we really want to get to the next level, then we need to look at investments that can push us up another level.
Right.
Whether we are actually providing services and goods and manufacturing goods that make us competitive at a higher level. For that, we need more strategic investment. We need to think about technology transfer. We need to really seriously invest in research and development. Most of the countries that kick-started their economy or made recoveries invested in research and development so that the policy choices are data-driven,
right,
rather than driven on sort of very narrow personal political agendas. So the role of the politician has to be implementation, but the planning process and the information has to come from the experts.
Right.
So our government will be about bringing that expertise into government, and the role of the leadership, the political authority, is to implement that.
So you all are looking at experts being involved in or maybe forming the next administration.
Absolutely. Absolutely, we need input from experts in those relevant areas. We've identified several areas where we think we need to really invest in, whether it's in terms of capital, whether it's in terms of technology, and whether it's in terms of research.
Right.
So that there's a link between the different areas of the administration. You're not just having an agriculture policy that is unlinked to the economy and unlinked to the education system. Yesterday I met with a group of employees from the Department of Agriculture who are graduates in agriculture, but who feel completely underutilized, because what the Agriculture Department is doing and what is expected of them has little relevance to the skills that they can bring in. So they were really frustrated. So that's the problem here. That we don't really have a system in place or a plan in place to bring all of these different elements together towards sort of one goal, one target.
Why is, I may be deviating, but something that just crossed my mind is that everywhere you see at least the two main political parties, or maybe even the three political parties, the UNP, SLPP and SJP, sort of having Anura Kumara's, Dissanayake, the NPP leader's face on a wall and always targeting him.
I think
why is he the target?
I think it's fairly obvious.
Yes, that his popularity.
Yeah, his popularity, his effectiveness, and we are the challenge. We are the threat. We are the party to be beaten. Anura is the leader to be beaten.
Right.
So,
but has that hype? I mean, I know that was there post Aragalaya, but some also feel that that trend is now sort of shifting away.
No, not at all.
Agree?
I think that it's not a trend. It's a consequence. It's a result of a lot of hard work that the NPP put in, that Anura himself led into mobilizing different segments of society to come on board with the vision we have for the country.
Right.
So this is not some sort of superficial trend about just popularity itself, right? It's much more driven based on a relationship that we have established with people.
But I think I would use the word trend is because there's also this feeling that there's a lot of inconsistencies within the party with different people saying different things. I think Sunil Handunetti's comment on Elon Musk was something that grew a lot of popularity there on social media. Is there, everyone saying, giving their own opinions, and that is leading to...
No, not again, those inconsistencies and the supposed sort of clash of opinions is something that is largely constructed by our opponents.
Okay.
Take, for example, Handunetti's remark on Elon Musk. It was part of a larger speech where he talked about many things. And he later apologized for making an inappropriate remark, and he had acknowledged that he shouldn't have done that. Right? We've moved on. Our opponents haven't, and that is because they have nothing to offer people other than a critique of us. So to critique us, then they have to sort of dissect every sentence we've made. A lot of editing and sort of sort of disinformation also happens. I mean, there have been instances where speeches that we have made, the beginning and the end has been cut off, words have been put together. Right? So this is to be expected. This is their politics. Their politics is very negative. It's about attacking us, and they have nothing else to offer the people.
Right.
So we know this, and this is what we have to deal with, and this is why this country needs a change.
What is Anura Kumar Dissanayake really gaining by his recent overseas visits? He's meeting a lot of Sri Lankan diaspora, but we see some of the local politicians from the opposition saying, look, the vote is not there, the vote is here. What is he going and gaining from them?
Well, I think that reaction is partly sour grapes and partly a lack of vision. Why we are reaching out to the diaspora is because we think there's a lot of potential there to be mobilized for the recovery of our country in terms of expertise, in terms of investment. There's a lot to be mobilized in the diaspora. I mean, many people who've left the country, perhaps you yourself included, left not because they don't like this country or don't want to live here, but conditions and circumstances drove them out. But they still have a deep connection here. They still would like to see the country prosper, and they would like to contribute to the country's development. And we think we can mobilize that. And we think not only do we think that we can mobilize that, we think we should mobilize this, because our country is in deep crisis in every sense. Right? We also need capacity, we need resources at every level if we are to pull ourselves out of this. And if there are people who are willing. Our recent launch of our research and development policy drew on lots of experts, because there are many Sri Lankans holding top positions in universities and research centers all over the world who are willing to work with us. So why shouldn't we mobilize them? So many of our meetings have been about reaching out to the diaspora and identifying and tapping into that resource.
But is the NPP also, apart from tapping into those resources, keeping elections in mind and assuming that what we saw when Gotabaya Rajapaksa contested, a lot of Sri Lankans from overseas came and voted for him? Are you expecting something like that happen here as well?
Well, that's not going to be the deciding factor in the election. We certainly think some of them will, because they continue to be citizens here, and maybe some of them will return to vote. But I think many of them also have influence over their families and communities here, and that's a factor that we think will work in our favor. But that's not going to be the deciding factor in the election. The election will depend on the people who are here. So that's only part of the reason, or not even the most important reason why we are reaching out to the diaspora. We simply think of them as a huge resource for helping us to recover and helping us to implement the policies that we are coming up with.
How is the NPP's, I know the last time we spoke about how Anura Dissanayake and the NPP as a party was building a strong rapport with the international community. We've seen that continuing. How has that progressed since then?
It's progressing well. We continue to speak to members of the diplomatic community. We are in regular contact. We exchange ideas. We iron out any differences of opinions we have. It's also an opportunity for us to correct some of the misconceptions that are deliberately fostered about us within the international community. So that's an ongoing relationship, ongoing discussions. We meet regularly, we exchange ideas, and I think they are beginning to, they're showing a huge interest in getting to know us and wanting to hear more about what we plan to do.
And the other factor is, with the elections coming up, there's talk of alliances being built, and of course splits in certain political parties as well. Is the NPP looking at gaining, apart from you were saying about experts and so on and so forth, like with other political parties as well, working on national issues?
When we are asked this question, and when I'm asked this question, I always ask a question back. Yep. Who do you want us to align with?
And you don't see within the current parliament setup, there's no one that you can work with?
Who are the political parties that we can align with? I mean, there are certainly individuals that we speak with. We have good rapport with the Tamil many of the Tamil parties, right? And but if you look at the so-called mainstream parties, right? The SJB, UNP is non-existent as far as I can see, and the SLPP. There's so much division and factionalism within, and there's no alignment in terms of ideas or policy. So for us, the important thing is we don't want to capture government power at any cost. Why we are doing this, why we want to be in government, is because we have a plan and a vision for the country. So anyone who joins us has to share that plan and vision. Otherwise, there is no point in doing this. So we are not going to just scramble for alliance just to make up numbers.
Okay.
That we are not going to do. And also, this is a parliament where the popular notion was all 225 should go.
Yes.
Okay? So we don't want to get into an alliance within a parliament that has been rejected by the people.
Right. Let
people re-elect who they want to, and then let's see who we can align with, if necessary.
Right. And how confident are you? I mean, there's some talk about the possibility of the elections being postponed, and that some of these divisions within some of these political parties may even hurt the chances of the NPP, or it might favor maybe Ranil Wickremesinghe alone or somebody else. I mean, how do you see those factors there?
We don't think the election it can be postponed. I think it's fairly clear it's very clear in our constitution that of the duration of the president, duration of the current president, right, and the dates, and all of that is extremely clear. So we don't think that the presidential election can be postponed. Of course, there will be all kinds of attempts to create uncertainty in people's minds, and that is again linked to the fact that the conventional parties and the president himself doesn't have confidence that he can actually face the people and win an election. If we had that confidence, we wouldn't be having this conversation about the need to postpone elections.
Right.
The very fact that they are trying all these underhand kind of efforts is an indication of their lack of confidence. But the law, we are confident, and we are confident that the judiciary will uphold the rights of the people and take whatever appropriate measures necessary to protect that. But the government will continue to create this sense of insecurity in the minds of the people, because, Easwaran, what I find when we are working right now is that there's a huge level of hope also about the possibility of transformation.
Right.
And that is what is drawing people to us, that excitement, that hope. What the president and his allies are doing right now is to try and kill that by creating that level of insecurity and uncertainty. And you can just see what a contrast there is in what we are offering. Right? We are offering a message of hope and transformation, and they're constantly trying to undermine that and keep pulling the country back.
Finally, Harini, how do you see the country as a whole? I mean, you said people are having hope on transformation, but the way things are going right now, can one expect real hope, real change
Yes.
Going forward?
Absolutely. I have a lot of hope for this country. I really think it is possible to change things around, because we don't have problems that cannot be solved. We don't have the kinds of sort of difficulties that countries face, which are complicated, and which, we don't have the kind of the natural disaster issues, or issues of political conflict and disaster.
So these are like simple issues which can be
resolved. Which can be resolved through proper leadership and just sort of a real kind of focus on fixing the problems of people.
Because the people outside, not in Sri Lanka, but the diaspora, most of them would say, we've lost hope in Sri Lanka. We've lost hope because we've seen successive governments coming and doing more or less the opposite to what they really promise.
I can understand where that cynicism comes from, but I would urge you, and I would urge anyone, not to give up on this country. There is a real opportunity for change. There's a real opportunity here for transforming this country. And I think we should do everything in our power. Certainly we are doing everything in our power to grasp that opportunity. I'm not going to say it's the last opportunity, because I don't believe that there's anything, there's that kind of finality to anything. There's always hope. But this is a real and actual opportunity that we should be absolutely making use of.
Well, on that hopeful note, we'll end our program. Thank you, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, for being on the program today.
Thank you, Easwaran, for this opportunity.
My pleasure. And that's all the time we have for you for On Fire for this week. Till next time, stay safe.